Racing to the Breeders' Cup, just 7 days away to the World Thoroughbred Championships. It's Friday, October 25th, and let's take a deep dive and closer look into the possible distaff field. Remember, next week we will preview all 14 races and make selections. Right now, it's time to just kind of take a look at your trip notes, get you set up to watch some race replays, and kind of give you some points to ponder as you start to think about who you're going to be keying on in that Breeders' Cup Distaff. Let's start at the top. And Blue Prize, the pride of Argentina, comes into the race. She's 2 for 5 on the year. She picked up a nice Grade 1 victory in the Spinster Stakes, her last effort. And that race, she defeated Dunbar Road and Elate, both possibly running on Breeders' Cup Saturday. Of course, Elate right now pointing to the Breeders' Cup Classic. And meanwhile, Dunbar Road will be a foe in this distaff race. Now, in that race, she was allowed to kind of settle just off the pace. This year in 2019, Blue Prize has been running closer to the pace, and that has allowed her to show a little bit more tactical speed and get involved in the race earlier this year. Last year, she tended to lay more 6 to 7 lengths back at the half-mile pole and kind of make a move in the stretch. Now she's kind of making that mid-race move to get into position going into the turn, and she kind of just wore down the leaders. 1.1 miles is a perfect distance for Blue Prize, and in her current form, even though she lost 2 races back to Elate by 4 lengths, that was at 10 furlongs in the Delaware Handicap. I think Blue Prize is a contender, and early look at odds is probably about 7 to 1. She's going to want some horses to kind of go to the lead, set up some fast fractions, and let the closers kind of do her work. Meanwhile, Dunbar Road had a sneaky good trip. She was trapped along the inside and was never allowed to run until a lane kind of opened up mid-stretch. But Dunbar Road, with a dominating victory in the Alabama Stakes and the Mother of All Gooses, she reeled off 3 straight wins after a tough second-place finish at Gulfstream Park earlier this year. Dunbar Road is a 3-year-old. She's facing older horses, and I think you're going to get about 7 or 8 to 1 in odds, and she definitely could have been the best horse. You could argue that she might have ran the best race in the Spinster Stakes. We'll see. You're going to get the right price on her. She's a 3-year-old facing older horses, and a horse like Blue Prize defeated her the last time. But she does have to face some new horses, including Midnight Bisou and a couple of the West Coast horses that are older horses. So Dunbar Road, definitely a contender. I guess your case for her is going to be that her Spinster Stakes race is a little bit better than she looked. She's lightly raced and still eligible to improve. Meanwhile, as you take another look at another contender, La Force, she's an older mare, did run in the Breeders' Cup Distaff last year, and this year she's had kind of some mixed signals. When she gets a strong pace and a bigger field, she can definitely make a move. She can run all day. The German breeding will show that. And I kind of like La Force. I think that last race, she really never got a chance in the Zenyatta. The race flow kind of favored the front runners as Paradise Woods and Secret Spice kind of ran off down the stretch. But La Force is definitely a contender and one to take a look at. Her best effort this year was the Santa Maria, which was a Grade 2. And then again, she was kind of forced to get a small field in the Clement Hirsch, and then she went to the turf before going back to the dirt. I think overall she's a better dirt runner. She needs a bigger field, and La Force could possibly be coming late in the distaff. Meanwhile, Midnight Bisou, your possible Horse of the Year contender, 12 for 18 lifetime, 7 for 7 in 2019. She's had a long campaign. She ran in January, March, April, June, July, and now she tries to stretch that form into early November. Her best distance is 1 mile and a 16th. She can get the 1 mile and an 1/8 distance, and her most recent race, the Belle Dame, again, another small horse field. That's the only concern with Midnight Bisou, is that she's faced 5 and 6 horse fields the entire year, and she's been the dominant horse in each of those races. She's been 6 to 5, she's been 3 to 5, she's been 4 to 5, and a lot of those races she only ever had to face one other prime contender. Now in this race she actually gets a couple of other contenders. Her natural running style is to kind of lay back and close and make that wide sweeping move going into the turn. She's never disappointed this year, and she's 7 for 7. Can she close out the campaign and make it 8 for 8, win the distaff, and vie for that Horse of the Year title? We will see next Saturday. But nothing wrong with Midnight Bisou. Continues to train forwardly, continues to hold her weight. I guess the only knock is just she's got to ship out west, but even that so, she's got good form at Santa Anita. She's 3 for 4 with a second place finish at the Great Race Place. Meanwhile, Ollie's Candy, the son of Candy Ride, is stretched out this year, went to the dirt after 4 races in a row on the turf. And really, she's made the transition well, won a grade 1 and then was 3rd in a grade 2. Now in the Zenyatta Stakes, we've got possibly 4 horses coming back to enter into the Breeders' Cup Distaff. You know, again, she kind of broke well from the gate, then was dropped back to last, made a move into the turn, but the race flow was all speed. And so I think Ollie's Candy needs to get into the race a little bit earlier, and I do think we'll see a little bit more of her tactical speed in the distaff. Paradise Woods, kind of conflicting signals. You know, she ran a gutsy, all-out effort in the Zenyatta Stakes, picked up the win over Secret Spice, but I don't like the way she was ridden hard in the stretch. She was hard-pressed to really win that race. It was a good effort, but I think it may took a lot out of her, and we just have not seen her put back-to-back efforts consistently in her career with 17 lifetime starts. When someone shows you who they are, then you kind of believe them. And Paradise Woods seems to be a horse that needs more time between races. It's hard for her to give back-to-back efforts. She's always had some feet problems. She's capable. She's going to be 10-1. Probably going to be leaning against her on my tickets next week when we come up with some of our final selections. I think she was just kind of gutted in that Zenyatta Stakes, and I just think she's not going to be able to bounce back with another big effort here, facing horses like Midnight Bisou, La Force, Ollie's Candy, and even a horse like Dunbar Road and Blue Prize. Secret Spice picked up a win 3 races back. You know, the La Troyenne Stakes, she ran a strong race. Some people have suggested she should run in the filly and mare sprint and do the cutback angle. Possibly, but I don't know. The only horse she should really be afraid of here is Midnight Bisou. Otherwise, she's traded form and pulled punches with Ollie's Candy and Paradise Woods. So I think she fits in this spot, and you just don't know how the track is going to play. She's on her home track. She likes Santa Anita, 3 for 7 lifetime at the Great Race Place. So I think Secret Spice is one to consider. And if she can shake loose maybe going into the turn, she could take these fillies a long way down that Santa Anita stretch. I think she fits. I think she's one you want to take a look at 15-1 odds. Serengeti Empress has lost her last 3 races, but don't be fooled by that statistic. She faced a monster in Garana 3 races back in the Acorn at a mile. She lost in the test stakes to Kofafi, who will probably be favored in the filly and mare sprint. And then last race in the Cotillion on a closer biased racetrack, she set some fractions, made a mid-race move, and just kind of faded late. I think she's going to run a good race here, but she does need to be on the lead. She does face other speed and Secret Spice and possibly Ollie's Candy and maybe even Blue Prize, who's going to make that move going into the turn. So Serengeti Empress, she has a win in the Kentucky Oaks that puts her in the mix. Her form overall is probably not improving, so she'd have to improve here in the distaff to pick up the win, but definitely one to consider for Serengeti Empress. Street Band had a sneaky good trip in the Alabama Stakes. She got boxed in the turn and lost to Dunbar Road and Point of Honor. She probably was second best that day, and you could make the case that she could have won that race with a perfect trip in the Alabama. Meanwhile, she came back at 7-1 odds and dominated the Cotillion, made a sweeping move going into the turn, and was one of those races she was locked and loaded with Sophie Doyle in the saddle, and you knew she was going to win going into the turn. Drew off to a 2-length victory, comes back at 1 1/8 miles, ships out to the West Coast, continues to train well, and Street Band is definitely a contender. Her best chances is to get some fast fractions, have Ollie's Candy and Secret Spice, mix it up, and then try to get a good trip and maybe get first run on Dunbar Road and Midnight Bisou, but definitely Street Band a contender. Wildcat ran second last year in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Again, small fields this year. She needs a bigger field. Last time out, she had to go closer to the pace to take off against Midnight Bisou. And Midnight Bisou is just a better horse in that type of tactical race conditions. But Wildcat does seem to be coming back into form. Her best race puts her close on her best day. I'm just not sure she's going to run her best race in this spot. She's another one that's got a ship from the East Coast, and I'm not sure she's going to like the deep Santa Anita surface. But she was definitely against it in the 5-horse field the last time out against Midnight Bisou. And I think she probably gets a better trip this time and definitely can contend for the win honors in the distaff. So Midnight Bisou, she's 7 for 7 on the year. Will she close out the year with a win and make it 8 for 8? She faces Other Speed in Secret Spice and Ollie's Candy. Meanwhile, Dunbar Road, coming off a sneaky trip in the Spinster Stakes, and Street Band, she is getting good at this time of the year. Those are all the contenders for the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Who do you like? Leave a comment, share this video, like, and subscribe. We need people to like the videos. That gets it more into the feed. And subscribe. It also allows YouTube to show it to more people. And next week, we'll preview all 14 races for the Breeders' Cup. That's your deep dive look into the Breeders' Cup Distaff on your Friday, October 25th update.